Hey dude,
Hey.
how's it going?
Pretty good. Sorry about the delay. How about you?
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, pretty good as well. I just finished up quite lengthy debates. Actually worked out really well because we would have had to cut the debate short had we been running on time here, so that's good.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Don't ever hesitate to if you have to move the time around, try to be flexible. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties. I guess that the battery in Richard's bike crapped out, so threw us off by a few hours there.
Oh, bummer. You're visiting Vegan Gains at the moment.
Sorry, I'm just drinking a huge thing of fucking Kool-Aid. No, we live together.
Oh, you live together.
Yeah, for now. I'm out here for a while. Just buys me some economic headroom to get some shit up and running, and then um, we're not going to be in this situation for super long, but it's pretty fun. We get along really well, so it's a nice little chunk of time out here.
Nice, that's awesome. Are you going to be getting huge in the basement gym?
Yeah, dude, I'm working out every day. Right now, I've
That's
had
awesome.
to take a break for the last like week and a half because I actually injured my arm, which is kind of annoying. I think I was trying to curl too much, and I think Richard said it's my brachialis or something. I don't fucking know, but yeah, I somehow injured my arm. Anyway, it's like mostly recovered, so pretty much get back to it. But yeah, no, it's been from a fitness point of view, it's been fucking insanely based being out here because I just wake up every day, I work out, I've been getting good cardio. I've just been able to focus entirely on the things that I want to, which are basically just fitness and ask yourself.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember you describing your perfect day, and it was pretty much that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've got a whole fucking chunk of other shit that I'm planning to do once I get out of here also. So yeah, it's good though. I've enjoyed it a lot out here. It's a kind of quiet area that we're in. I won't say exactly where it is. Richard keeps it kind of to himself, but that's pretty chill.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying life at the moment then. It's a good bit. It's a good bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's fucking awesome. I'm having a great time. What
That's
about you?
great.
Is life good with you? Are you dominating your enemies in debate?
We're having a rather polite debate today. It was a debate with another vegan. I think you might know this person actually. They go by Foolproof Mastery in the Discord servers. They're in your server.
I've seen the name, I think in Nick's server,
Hmm.
but I'm not familiar with them. Or if I am, sorry to Foolproof Mastery. Maybe we've spoken before.
Yeah, he was very good on the prop logic stuff. He had syllogisms on slides in our debate. I thought, well, I'm going to get wrecked here, but it was a friendly discussion.
Yeah, there's a misperception that people who care about logic and who actually take the time to consider those things are like unfair. I mean, it's it just makes things clear and easy to proceed. In fact, formalizing your argument anything makes it easier to attack because you can't waffle around. You're being very explicit about what you're saying, so people can really hold you to it. Of course, if you become explicit like that, then when holes get poked, you can fix up your explicit formulation and ultimately down the line it'll lead you to something more stable because instead of always waffling around as pressure is placed on you, you're forced to actually look at your exact structure and then modify it so that the criticism doesn't work against it anymore. And you can't really refine a vague waffling kind of idea in the same way you can refine something clear. So it's kind of like formalizing. The way I think about it is that it makes you initially a more vulnerable, but it gives you something meaningful that you can iterate on that will eventually be a lot stronger. So it's kind of like if you have like a chart and like two lines and one starts like lower than another, like a time versus um I don't know, like fortitude or something or stability kind of graph.
Mm.
Like eventually the formal ones the line starts lower, but then it overtakes the other.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. And actually, just before the debate, I was just reading this Substack about productive disagreement. Um, and one of the things it's talking about is kind of forcing both sides to get more evidence and be more precise and be argue their position better. And I've felt a real sense of that in doing this recent arc that I've been on, which, by the way, do you know anything at all about the Forget Veganuary campaign, the FarmKind stuff?
No, I'd like to get into that actually. I saw some stuff about it and kind of curious what the deal is there.
Yeah, so the
Sorry, can I just before you get into that, who wrote the productive disagreement thing?
this is on a Substack by someone called sandcastlesblog.substack.com. I'll give you a link to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are they associated with our space at all? Because that's a term that I use quite a lot. I'm wondering if there's a connection there.
Oh, interesting. Their name is Aiden Kankyoku.
Not that I know
Fair
of.
enough.
Okay. I do use it more in my head. Like, because a lot of the stuff I've been building out, I've been using the term productive disagreement constantly.
Hmm.
Because, and we'll come back to I want to hear about the Veganuary, forget Veganuary, but a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with built, like when I complete this whole course and stuff, like I literally at one point thought of calling it the productive disagreement course.
Hmm.
Because like on one level you can look at it like, oh, it's the weapon to debate, but another is like it's really just elevating the discourse. Like I feel like people are not taught how to disagree productively as children. Like they're not really in school, they're taught to kind of like get along and just like, not fight with each other, and they don't learn the intellectual tools to disagree productively, and they also don't learn the right norms of like, tell it just like be direct but don't be mean, and there's just all this shit that's missing that I would like people to have. So yeah, it's just that term is interesting. And when you talk about your arc, what arc do you mean? Just the arc of kind of going around and debating and arguing with people?
Well, this particular latest arc is on the farm kind issue, so it's brought me to disagreements with other vegans rather than disagreements with meatheads, which is where I usually
Oh,
am.
okay.
Yeah,
I was thinking about the broader arc of like you getting into the philosophy and debate space and kind of like so you're talking about like a sub arc kind of within that
that's
arc.
right. Yeah, that's right. That's the broader arc. Yeah.
I do think it's cool that you're having that broader arc, though. I think a lot of people, so like I do compliment you for doing that. I think a lot
Oh,
of people,
thanks.
especially a lot of academics, I don't know if you think of yourself as an academic. I mean, you have a degree and you do academic stuff. So, I mean, I think we'd say you're an academic. I guess you're not doing stuff in a university context.
Mm.
Whatever, regardless, a lot of people don't they don't really get into the like trying to argue for their ideas and seeing what other people have to say and learning to really refine and articulate them clearly, and it's just such a important experience to have because it makes you refine your ideas so much more. It makes you a much better communicator. It makes you realize a lot more about your ideas. And it gives you a realistic sense of what fucking makes sense or not, instead of just being like a hero in your own head or something.
Hmm.
There's like a kind of honesty and vulnerability that you have to like actually do that and go through that process. And it's very good. You just end up being just a better reasoner and a better proponent. So I think it's very good that you like overall have gone on that arc.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. And yeah,
Of course.
it's kind of a little bit scary, right? Because especially when you're going to go and do debates, you go the first time you think, oh, I don't know how this is going to go, right? Maybe I'm about to get embarrassed here. And I
Mm.
think there's no substitute for doing it. I think it's
No.
when you watch a lot of debates, it's easy to imagine. Well, I don't know how that's done because I've watched a lot of debates, but it's very, very, very different doing it. Hey.
Oh yeah, there's people who think they could do it and they don't realize how hard it is when you're actually in the conversation. Because when you're backseat driving it, you're like, firstly, your nervous system is totally settled. You're
Hmm.
not feeling anxious or anything at all, which I think for a lot of people, there's at least some level of anxiety that debate brings up. You've got your full mental bandwidth there, and you're not having to do any tracking. So it's not like you have a lot of your bandwidth going towards making sure you're tracking the conversation and replying in a way it's like linear and connected. You're just hearing points, and then a point hits you that you see a response to, and you see the optimal thing to respond to that
Yes.
particular point. But really, it's like, okay, if you said that in the context, it wouldn't even make sense in the flow of the discussion because there's already a different kind of flow happening. And it would be a lot harder to realize that point with that much depth while doing all the other juggling, and you likely have some level of anxiety and like all these things. So people really backseat drive debate, and they think it's a lot easier than it is. And no, there's no substitute. The real combination of like doing the debate and then doing the theorizing about it, so like a kind of theory practice combo iteratively, that's how you get like really good. I think at both, basically they're mutually supporting.
Yes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, totally, you're totally right about the backseat driving. When you are watching a debate and you spot the point that you could have made better, you can just take for granted that you would have done at least as well on all the other points, right?
Yeah,
Which is,
that's a great way to
yeah,
say it. Exactly. Yes. And it's like, no, there's no reason to think that. And
yeah,
yeah, you realize quickly how many moving parts there are when you actually start doing the thing. And that's part of why I do the kind of style that I do when I debate. Like I think you want to have kind of like an algorithm. You want to have a way to simplify things so that you don't have to track all those moving parts. You can free up more mental bandwidth. There's one other thing I was going to say about this. Bait, mental bandwidth. Give me a second to remember. Oh, yeah, and it makes you develop better norms. And there's things that you can, like, there's a difference between realizing a thing intellectually and realizing it at a really like experiential level where you're like living that thing. Like one example, I think in philosophy they have words for this. There's like different kinds of knowledge. Maybe is either this or is a close concept where there's like propositional knowledge, and then there's like experiential knowledge, like how to ride a bike. Is like experiential knowledge. So I might be talking about that, but a good example of this kind of thing is like jujitsu. Like you could study jujitsu, you could learn all the moves, you could get to a point that you can watch a match and go like, oh, side control, there's mount, okay, he's going for the Kimura. Like you could, tell everything that's happening. But if you were to actually try to do jujitsu, you'd get tapped out instantly by a white belt because there's a separation there between the like having the skill and at some more abstract level understanding what's going on. So yeah, there's stuff like that, and also it forces you to learn certain kind of norms. Like you were talking about feeling like, oh, I might get wrecked here. Like that's a normal thing to think, but then I think, well, at least this is how what's happened for me. Like with thoughts like that, I'm like, well, I find that through doing a lot of these conversations, you can intellectually find your way to a better way to think about it, and then experientially by doing a lot of these debates, conversations, whatever, you can ingrain that understanding. Like if you just have the intellectual thing, you won't ingrain it, and the second you're actually in a debate, you'll what regardless of your intellectual realization, you're wherever you're actually at emotionally is just going to be where you're at. But if you're actually doing the debates, you can ingrain the intellectual realization into a more like experiential embodied kind of knowing. So like for it, just to take that one to make this concrete, like, oh, I'm gonna get wrecked. So like, what's a more productive way to think about that? Like, not just more productive, but is that even really what you think about? Is that a worthwhile or good thought? Like, I mean, it's worth trying to do your best and defend your ideas well. But and you probably have this frame already. I doubt that this is something you've never heard. But a way better way to think about it is just like, I'm just trying to find out what's true and then help other people see what's true. I think I'm right and I think they're wrong, but we're going to explore. And there's not really any bad outcome here. Like if I turn out being right, then it's like, okay, great. I was correct and I helped spread the truth and that became clear to people. And if I'm wrong, well then that's just a chance for me to improve. Like I was wrong about something. I want to know that I'm wrong about something and now I've been shown and I can be more correct in the future. Right? So there's the reframe where it's like, okay, that's way more productive than worrying about getting wrecked. And then as you actually debate, when the getting wrecked thought comes up, you kind of remind yourself of the reframe and try to think like that. And then, a few debates deep, you notice that the getting wrecked thought just doesn't really come up as much or subsides really quickly because you've kind of experientially ingrained that better reframe.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of thinking about it. I have to say, I noticed a little bit differently in this debate that I just did, which, like I say, is against a guy who's also a vegan and an animal advocate. We want a lot of the same outcomes. I did have much more of that modest, like, hey, I could be wrong here and I'd be happy to be shown to be wrong. And exactly as you say, I don't want to be wrong for a moment longer than I need to be, than in some other debates that I've had with meatheads where I'd feel, well, I can't help but feel a bit invested in this, and we're going to argue about whether there's a health risk of red meat or something. I clearly, part of me is like, I want the answer to be that yes, there is, and I'm trying to interpret the evidence that way and stuff like this. So there's a bit more. It feels like there's something that I could lose in that case, whereas in this case, I'm talking to another vegan about a difference in strategic approach. Maybe my strategy is wrong and I want to find that out. So yeah, it's definitely that different mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I actually would encourage taking the latter mindset in both, or
Mm.
trying to, because really, like, if you think about it, you do feel the same way about the Carnus thing. Like, at least I assume you do. Like, imagine for whatever reason carnism is actually right and just like aligns with all your values and is best for health and like you would just want to know that, right? You
Mm.
would want to be shown wrong. Like, yeah, I mean, it means you've been wasting a bunch of your time, but it's better to learn that now than to waste more of your time, right? So there's really no reason not to just have the exact same framing when talking to the carnist. Obviously, the other party can also make it easier or harder. Like, I try to make people feel comfortable as best I can when I talk to them. Sometimes people won't do that, and they're out for blood,
Mm.
obviously. Um, yeah, I think you can have this, or at least work towards having the same mindset in both contexts, and that would actually be more productive, more psychologically equanimous. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. You'd have more psychological equanimity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think that difference only arises when so like from my perspective, if somebody could present me with a very compelling uh, argument against the idea that red meat is unhealthy, let's say, and that wouldn't necessarily change my value judgment because I'm going to be more interested in the ethical part of the conversation, but I would be thinking, I don't want this to be the conclusion of the conversation for other viewers who might not share that same set of values but might be concerned about the health thing. But then that is a bit of a dishonest way ultimately to engage with that point, I suppose, isn't it? Like rooting for one outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the like, oh, well, fuck, I still feel right about the topic overall.
Mm-hmm.
And now the conversation is just what's happened is the part of the conversation we focused on was a part I turned out being wrong about. And that might give the misleading impression that I'm wrong about the whole topic. And yeah, I mean, if there's time left in the conversation, if the topic wasn't locked down to that one specific thing, maybe you can then talk about an area where you're more likely to be right and try to balance the scale and do the best for the animals and the stuff you care about. But also, sometimes you just got to take an L. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes you might just fuck something up. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect at taking an L, or that that's an easy thing to do, but I think broadly, if you're like smart and you're putting in your effort and you're trying your best to be intellectually honest and you're going to keep going, having, some conversations or some videos or whatever your form of engagement is, having some of it go wrong, it's not the end of the world, because again, just like being smart, having good things you're trying to do, having a good attitude about how you're approaching it, if you just keep at it, the overall effect is almost certainly going to be like vastly majority positives. It's going to be mostly positive.
Mm.
So it's not that big a deal, I think. Although it
Yeah,
does feel like a big deal when it's happening.
for sure. Yeah, and there is also a point about how it connects to the integrity and the perceived integrity as well of your overall set of positions. I think of some of the guys in RV server arguing quite vociferously against the view that a vegan diet can reverse heart disease, right? And that's an example of something where you might say, well, I'm not really expecting these guys to be burning a lot of energy arguing against this. but I suppose the sort of second order effect of that it does kind of increase my credence in other things that they're saying, because I have a clear example of something where if they were going to mislead about something, this would be the type of thing that it would, and they haven't. So yeah.
Um, so I got mildly distracted for a second because I was just sharing our conversation for people.
Oh,
But
no worries.
I mean, if I caught that, were you saying that basically you found that there's the vegans in the server who are against like the standard vegan kind of myth or like overstated claim that it's not clear we have evidence for that veganism reduces heart disease, and running into that is like initially a bit off-putting if you've been thinking that's true or seeing a lot of people who say it. But then when you realize, wait, like, hey, they're actually all vegan and they all care about the same things and they just actually care about the truth and they're not ideologues, that's actually kind of like reaffirming and actually feels good. Or did
Yeah,
I
and
miss part of
pretty much, yeah, and that it increases my confidence in other things that those people might have to say, because I have a clear
yes.
example of something where I think they could have gone along with a convenient myth in this case, and
Right.
they didn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. I'm just going to refill my Kool-Aid setup here, so I'll be back in just a second. We can get into the veganuary thing if you want. Okay, one sec, I'll be back.
No worries. Sounds good. Yeah, I think Ask Yourself's going to tend to disagree with my position on the veganuary stuff, because it's a very deontological. It's a deontological sin. Surprised that he hasn't heard about that at all, but we'll get anyone's reaction to the FarmKind discourse. Hey, London, nice to see you. Hey, Oggy. Yeah, I have read Peter Singer. I've read his Effective Altruism book, um, which I guess is very applied. Oh, nice, vegan stem. You know, I saw Peter Singer talk at University of Edinburgh last year, and it was quite something. I feel it was a packed out lecture theatre. It was really a cool lecture, very like subtle in how wise he was, in a good way. In a good way, it was very. You know, there's stuff about the history of the movement. This is where I picked up that point about animal rights used to be a right wing issue that I mentioned the other day, and that lefties would say animal rights is distracting from worker rights and stuff like this. Um, but yeah, it was a really, really cool lecture. And you know, you hate to say it, but it's pretty old, right? So I had the sense of like my time to see this guy give a lecture might be limited.
I have returned.
Hey, how's it going? Um,
Good.
yeah, so I'm surprised that you haven't heard about the or haven't seen much about the Forget Veganuary campaign.
I saw someone sharing a thing about it, but I didn't actually explore what exactly it is.
Yeah, well, so one of the issues around it is that a lot of the a lot of the headlines are not telling the full story. Um, but essentially, there's this organization called FarmKind, and their theory of change for helping animals, they're an animal charity, is
Mhm.
to generate more resources for the movement and generate, you know, counterfactual donations that the movement can use. Um, and their particular campaign that they have just launched, you know, like a week ago, is called Forget Veganuary, and they had this website forgetveganuary.com, and the whole idea is that they are pitching donations over diet change, and they're saying basically like some very explicit kind of moral licensing that you can carry on eating meat, and if you're donating enough to these animal charities, you can essentially offset that and be, you know, helping more animals than if you were being vegan. And you know, much discourse has ensued.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty toxic way for them to be approaching things. Like, yeah, it's true in a utilitarian sense that you can do more good by doing something else, but I don't think you want to target a moral obligation and say, fuck the moral obligation. Like, I would never say, like, imagine a campaign that was like, forget not children. You'd be like, wait, okay, no, sorry. If you think that you can help more children by donating to like anti-child trafficking charities, than you'd be able to do by not raping them, then like that's a fair thing to observe. And if it's reasonably easy to donate, then please do donate. But you don't want to actually fire a shot at the idea of not children. That's fucking completely insane. Where do you sit on this?
Well, to stay away from the spicier hypotheticals, it came down to, and just finished up a 2 hour debate on this, and it comes down to the idea, and it is very like utilitarian brained as well, which sue me, I guess. It came down to for me, the empirical point of whether doing this kind of approach can generate enough counterfactual resources that it prevents so much suffering or offsets so many rights violations that wouldn't have been able to be done otherwise. And if it does generate enough, then it is worth it, even though there is some. They're doing this whole thing, right? They're teamed up with these competitive eaters, and they're going to eat only meat for a whole day. They're doing these ridiculous, like, eat a whole goat challenge and all this kind of stuff, which Patrick, the guy I was debating, and shares the opinion of many vegans, I'm sure, that like this is not the way to do things. And yeah, I'm taking the view that it could be, if it in fact enables us to get resources from a much larger group of people who are very unlikely to go vegan in any case and are very unlikely to donate otherwise, then there could be some sacrifice worth making in that direction. There's a lot of uncertainty about how the empirics are going to play out, like how much donations the campaign will in fact generate, and how much of the messaging of the campaign will in fact hurt veganuary or hurt veganism more broadly. But I thought that you would have the more deontologic approach of saying there's got to be a pretty high bar to say that this endorsing the animal consumption is okay.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like some kind of event where they like, just a child, like you just
All right, well,
some guys just the shit out of a child,
probably
and
not safe for
it's like,
YouTube.
oh, well, yeah, sorry. I mean, like we would all obviously just look at that and be like, okay, look, like there are like maybe somehow this generates more utility. Okay. But this is just not an okay way to do things. Like you can you can find you like there's a million ways you can campaign for something, and if you think that the current way something is happening is not high enough utility, then come up with something else. But I don't see any reason to think that the thing that you need to go for to maximize utility is one that fires shots at or gives the idea that, excuse me, that it's morally acceptable to do something insane like that. So no, I mean, I think it's completely disgusting. I think that, like, I mean, what are we trying to resolve? Are we trying to answer the question of is it the right thing to do? Are we trying to answer the question of is it the optimal thing to do? I'll tell you what I would like to see done. Are we trying to talk about what we'd like to see done? I'd like to see any kind of thing that maximizes utility for animals that doesn't also tell people that it's fine to commit a fucking holocaust against animals or to pointlessly torture them. Like, it seems very obvious that you can just get the goods without also randomly having this disgusting attitude. And I wonder about the psychology of people who are doing this kind of stuff. I wonder if it's just a bunch of disgusting fucking carnous scumbags who just want some way to feel justified in continuing their shit, um, via some kind of cringe offsetting argument, and this is all just some way to justify this. Like, is this actually something that vegans are running, or is it being run by Holocaust supporters?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting part of it. As far as I believe that everyone involved with the campaign are themselves vegans, and they,
Weird.
but they, well, I mean, it's a super sincere theory of change that they have, where they're going to basically say there's some just sacrifice entailed here, right? Where they're making a bet that they can generate enough resources that they can help so many animals that it is worth making the sacrifice of the one, and it's like, or not of the one, but some number, and it's like a big trolley problem where like there's all these resources that you can use to help animals, but you have to kind of drive over some number of them in order to get to those resources. Um,
You
that
feel the same way about a campaign to end child where they're like children?
Well, so yeah, again, I'm trying to keep it not too, trying to keep it PG, but I would bite the bullet on
We
analogous.
need a real example. Like, I mean, what? Like, I don't want to use some bullshit fake example. What's wrong with that?
Well,
I
farming.
think you should just consider streams with me like a financial write-off, basically, because I'm not gonna talk like some little bitch on this thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
is can I just please talk like a grown adult here?
Well, I have a lot of people from my professional network watching, and I'm also like streaming on YouTube, so try not to get kicked off that. But we can say
Okay,
farming humans, like.
I don't feel comfortable. We'd have to like move to another topic then,
Mhm.
because I'm not gonna censor myself. So if you want to talk about this, I'm gonna talk like an actual adult about it. So if you want to talk in a way where I have to speak sort of like a baby, let's just go to some other topic.
All right. Well,
That's the
perhaps.
compromise I'll make.
Yeah, yeah. Well, perhaps that's for the best. I'm sure there's plenty of other things that we could talk about anyway. Yeah, I prefer not to get down the road of doing very spicy hypos and all things like that. I mean, I will say like on an analogous case of human farming, but yeah, we don't need
Okay, but
to.
if you answer it, I'm gonna go back to make the
Yeah, yeah,
point. I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
make it
I
in the
got you. I
same
got you.
way.
Well,
So
I
if you
won't.
don't want me to say certain things, you change the topic.
I hear you. All right. Well, we better we'd better do that then. Hey, we'd better do that. Um,
Yeah, I'm not cucking to the YouTube rules. Not
okay,
happening.
that's fine. That's fine. Um, all right. Well, good. Let me bring out some other. And by the way, I sort of thought that we would disagree on this point, and that I think a lot of it comes down to a utilitarian outlook, which is not particularly fashionable in some circles. Anyway, I will resist
Well,
saying too
no,
much more
but I
about it.
mean, like it's not clear that we do disagree. That's why I'm asking you if there was a parallel event where they're a child,
Mhm.
would you think would you look at that situation and would you want that to be the way that they campaign, or would you prefer that they do it in a way where they're not children?
Well, we don't. I won't. I won't go down that one. We could do another one, but I think it's best if we move on. Hey.
Okay.
All right. Well, why don't you tell me about what you're working on developing? You're back doing Ask Yourself stuff. Is that making videos, doing your platform? What's going on there?
Well, I've been on a little side tangent just fixing up some stuff with my computer and my configuration over the last like 2 weeks or so. But yeah, pretty much in the same position as I think as I told you last time. I don't think there's been a whole lot of change because I've been working on again sort of just stuff to do with my computer. But yeah, finishing building out the foundation, which really is just like getting a really good bot so the Discord is well managed. Like there's a ton of stuff that I want to add to that just to make the Discord a really fucking great place. And I want to get the basic front end built out, which it's like done. I just have to do a little bit of kind of plumbing. And then that way I can get money through that and I can have a thing that I can publish onto and stuff. And once I have that foundation stuff done, it's just going to be really focusing on the debate course. That's
Nice,
going to be the big focus. Then after that I have a whole backlog. I want to make like an NTT course. I want to do some other stuff. Yeah.
nice. And which part of this is monetizable?
Well, I mean, the whole thing basically. So the way that I think I'm going to do it is I think that I'm going to have membership, and I don't know exactly what it'll be. It might be like $10 a month or something like that. And if you are a member, then you're going to just have access to all the Ask Yourself stuff. So, like all the content, the things like the course, any kind of apps that I make, like if I have like the linearizer, the truth table stuff, NTT app, whatever I build, you get access to all the content. If I have a knowledge graph, if I have videos, all that shit. Probably also some stuff in the Discord. I think I'm probably gonna stop hanging out in the general in Discord and just hang out in the patron area, and some of the specialty channels. And so all of that basically, and whatever I produce going forward, it's going to build this bigger and bigger and bigger value proposition that's all going to be behind the same paywall. So that's kind of the idea that I have for monetization. And I mean, I don't know how well it'll work. I'm really not sure. I wanted to do a thing where I just make it optional and just give everything away for free, and then just say like, and you can be a member for like $5 a month or something like that. But I've really lost faith in humanity. I just think you get this free rider problem kind of
Mm,
thing. And I mean, I just I feel like I'm a free rider. There's various things I free ride on. So
right.
and I just think it's just how people are. And I don't think that I think I need to be a bit more pragmatic, and instead of just being kind of idealistic and being like, oh, just like give away the thing because you want everyone to have it, just be like, nope, put a paywall there and make people pay so you don't get annihilated by free riders. um so yeah, I think that's the idea. And I mean, it could theoretically be quite lucrative. Like, say it's $10 a month. Right now I have what, like 22,000 people on YouTube or something like that. I mean, presumably some of those people don't have accounts anymore, don't really follow. I don't know, but let's just look at that number. If 1% of those people became members, what would that be? What's so 10% is what,
Be 220.
2,000? And then 1% is 200.
That's right. Yeah.
So times 10, that's $2,000 a month. That's like enough to live off
Yeah.
of. Um, so that's if 1% of people were to become members. And there'll be tiers. You could be, I'll find some way to do it so there's also higher tiers. So people who are well off, like if you have someone who's got so much money that to them giving away $100 is the equivalent of me giving away a fucking penny. I
Hmm.
want some way for that person to be able to give more money. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'll make some tiers or something, but it seems like at least in theory it could generate good money. Like, I mean, the idea of like 200 people who are subscribed, that doesn't seem that crazy. Frankly, the idea of building up to like 1,000 people who are subscribed doesn't seem that crazy. And that would be like, I think I'd be making like six figures or something at that point. So it at least, right? What does that do? 1,000 times 10 is 10,000 times 12 for 12 months in a year is like $120,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could scale up and give good money. Or it could be that I just build some autistic thing and like 10 people use it. So like I really don't know, but I know that I want to build it regardless. And financially, I have a whole different kind of trajectory for just being able to get stable income that doesn't really rely on the ask yourself stuff that I'm going to go down. So I don't need to think about it purely from a financial point of view, but it's financially, it seems like it could actually turn out possibly well. So I'm
Absolutely.
gonna hope for that.
Yeah, I think so. It seems to me like you ought to be able to monetize pretty heavily your, internet presence and follower base and everything like that. Um, it's interesting what you say about like a departure from an idealistic view where you kind of want to be able to give your message to free for everyone and so on. I think I guess there is a trade off ultimately where presumably paywalling something does drop its traffic like quite considerably, I imagine, right? There's maybe 1% of people willing to get out the card details. But I mean, at some point the trade-off becomes I have to be able to afford to live while I am making this thing. And so if the options are put it out for free, but actually not have enough to be able to live while I'm making it, and therefore putting out nothing for free, right? Versus putting out something behind a paywall and actually being able to sustain yourself to make it, or to make it better than you could have done otherwise. Yeah, at some point that has to be. I mean, living costs money. Living continues to cost money, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean there's like this is all true. There's trade-offs. Like if you put a paywall there, there's less eyes on it because there's now less people who are going to pay, obviously, so less people will make their way to the content. You can mitigate against that by like doing things like using YouTube and these other things as funnels where you put part of your content on there. So you're still getting lots of eyes on stuff there, but like to get the secret sauce, to get the like full thing, you kind of have to go through the site. So there's ways to mitigate against the way that it damages reach, I think. There's also kind of moral concerns that I have. Like, I mean, I don't know that's the right way to put it. I don't think there's anything immoral about monetizing content, but so maybe that's not the right way to frame it, but it's just I would ideally like to be able to give it away for free.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I were like a fucking multi-millionaire or something like that, um well, I don't know exactly where the threshold is, but there's obviously some threshold where I would just be like, why the fuck am I charging for this at all? I mean, I guess maybe it's always worth charging, like, and just lowering it a lot, or I don't know exactly, but I definitely feel some level of like something seems a little bad in some ways about charging, like less eyes on it, certain things that I really just kind of want everyone to get access to, but that now are behind a paywall. But maybe that can be mitigated against also. Maybe the things that feel really important to get out to everybody, there I could make those available. But even then, like see, right now I'm just these are the kind of things I have like this like discussion I have with myself in my own head. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not totally resolved here. But like even then, I mean, one of the things I really want people to have will be this debate thing I'm making, but it's so much effort and it's like it's just too crazy to give that away free. And then also well, at least to give it away for free when I like don't have income. Like it's just completely like it's not even I guess it's weird. I sort of start thinking about an idealized situation, whether I would charge in that kind of case, and I guess I'm not totally resolved on that. But especially when I consider the real world situation, it's like there's just no way. Like I don't people will treat you like you're just some passive thing out there doing free shit for them and they'll just free
100%.
ride off you. And that's just I don't know, in a way, like sorry that my thoughts are mixed here. Like in a way that's kind of okay because like this is something I would do anyway.
Yeah.
But in another way it's not because like ideally I would like to be able to get sufficient income to live from doing this stuff. Because then the other stuff becomes the optional stuff. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit unsettled on the whole thing, but I've definitely what I know at this point is that paywall will be there. So I'm not settled on everything, but I am settled on this shit's going behind a paywall and people have to pay. There are also upsides. Like obviously one upside is like actually getting paid for your work instead of being treated like an infinite slave. Another is that I think you're gonna cut down the amount of trolls and just human garbage who are watching your stuff. I think you're gonna select more for an audience who are genuinely invested in what you're doing. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's probably other things, but yeah, it's a big ton of trade-offs. I don't know how I feel about everything, but I do know that at least immediately a paywall is definitely going to be the approach that I take.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It is interesting, isn't it, thinking about charging for these things. Well, A, things which you feel I really enjoy doing this and I would just do this for free if life was free and if I was able to sustain myself infinitely that way. And B, especially when it's like, I'm hoping that some moral good will come out of this. People are going to be more able to convince people to go vegan or whatever it is. But I'm going to stick it behind a paywall. I can see how that's kind of conflicting. I mean, I've thought of this before. Honestly, this is kind of the case in my own business, which I started with very much this mindset, and still have this mindset really to a large extent, of like, I kind of would do this for free if I could afford to. And I'm very invested in the good that the business is doing, and I want to be able to do more of that. And I don't want to be in a position of like turning down projects which I think could have done a lot of good because they couldn't afford to pay me enough and stuff like this.
Right.
It gets to be quite uncomfortable. I've thought this even before with like sponsoring someone to run a marathon, say, right? Your friend says, "Oh, I'm going to run a marathon." Let's say they're going to give to a vegan charity, or just, whatever charity that would be a good thing, and you're going to sponsor them to run the marathon and finish the marathon. If they fail to finish the marathon, are you going to not pay the charity? It's a little bit weird having the payments contingent in that way. But I will say this, like my experience with the business, so my company does research for animal charities. And so we are in a position sometimes of saying, like, we are going to not do research for this charity because they can't afford to give us enough money for it. And that sounds kind of shitty when you say it like that. But largely my experience in, the professional world has been one of, people totally get that living costs money. We've all got to eat. That you need to make a salary. You can't give away all of your time for free, and so on. And I actually more often find myself in a situation where our charity clients are saying, "Are you sure you've charged us enough here?" Which I always take as a great compliment, because I think that must mean we're very good value. But yeah, it is very fraught when you introduce, financial incentives into areas where we might wish there weren't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just all of that sounds right to me. I would like to do it for free because
Yeah.
it is a thing that I would do anyway. Um, but yeah, it's just that it's literally not feasible. So I don't even know how much value there is in thinking about what I would do if money weren't an object. I mean, unless I somehow make a shitload of money out of like nowhere, then money will be an object for the foreseeable future. So
Well,
I
honestly, it
may as
sounds
well
pretty
just
scalable what you're talking about with, like monetized tiers connected to your internet presence. That is what a lot of people do and make a good living out of, right? I mean, I think,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, because I've thought a lot about like really, I have this engineering mindset, and it's from starting software engineering. Like, I mean, I think of philosophy largely like conceptual engineering. It's like engineering in the concept space, and then software engineering is engineering in the virtual space. And then, I mean, part of the stuff I really want to learn, I want to learn about more physical kinds of engineering. That's a whole thing. I won't get into that right now. But the engineering mindset is like just one of the absolute most valuable mindsets I've ever had, and or learned, and it's kind of, I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but just like look at the outcomes you want and just think about how to actually build a system that gives them to you. Like it's funny because it sounds basic, but like very few people seem to really inhabit or
mm,
use, or I don't know, very, it's not common to really apply that thinking really effectively and globally in your life. But yeah, I mean, when I think about monetization systems, like that's just an engineering problem. Like you can build out some way, like there's no need to buy into these existing systems. You can, create some kind of model, put what you need in places where you get money for it. You can get money in different ways. You can set up like pay as you go stuff. You can set up tiers. You can, there's a whole ton of different stuff you can do. You can give away different kinds of benefits and things based on how much someone's paying. And there's other things that are also just engineering problems, like criticism. I mean, I look at some people, sorry, that's my alarm. I look at some people like Earthling Ed. And I once tried to make him aware of some issues with some stuff he was saying, and it was like this impossible. Like, how the fuck do you get through to this guy? And then it's like, well, fuck this. I think I might have sent an email or something, and you got some like team to deal with. I don't remember exactly.
yeah. I remember you
Uh,
saying, yeah,
but I mean, sorry.
yeah. I remember you saying he was. You've got his assistant or something on email, didn't you? Yeah,
I forget exactly what happened, but the overall thing was it just made me think this is just poorly engineered. Like you can engineer a criticism system. Like use something like Discord, for instance, build out a bot. You can build out certain kind of channels. You can have buttons. People can click the button based on the kind of criticism they have, or based on whether it's like to make you aware of content, or who knows exactly. But you can engineer a system like this, and then there's all these things about how to do engineering and how to make these things work well. And when you have something, once it's been expressed in code, though software engineering is just a kind of engineering, well, then you can notice what its properties are like. You can notice, like, okay, how does it work? What does it do well? What does it do poorly? Am I happy with the format things are coming in? Do people find it easy to engage with? And you notice all the pain points, and then you iterate and you make the next version that better optimizes for the goal you have. So instead of just defaulting into some shitty, like, pre-constructed system that likely also skims off of you and is like in various ways limited, just engineer your own solution to these kind of problems and end up with something better that you can iterate on and just hone and hone and hone over time. The sooner you get into a position that you have something that you can be honing, well, the sooner it's getting honed and the sooner you get better with it. So yeah, I mean, I think all these things are just engineering problems and should be approached in that way, and that's how I intend to approach basically everything I'm doing.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I read a book last year called Systemology, and it's about sort of systematizing a business in this case. But I guess this applies to a lot of areas where, yeah, the idea is that you want to get to a stage where you have, all of the procedures for doing certain things are a very common standard procedure, and there's some
Hmm.
place where people can refer to and see, okay, well, this is where it's
Yep.
gone wrong, and so on. And I think that has, yeah, focusing on building the system that does the thing that you want is like a meta level up compared to just
Yeah.
doing the thing that you want, right? And then you got to kind of work it out each time.
Systems over effort, always
Yeah.
always wins. I mean, it's so clear to me. And I see some people in the chat saying things like, paywall of any amount would probably cut out the majority of trolls. Oh, there's some dedicated trolls, but yeah, I mean, that would be a good thing. Repaywall, maybe some approach of having a minimum sub amount to cover life costs, and when hitting that, making it free for everyone would be a viable approach. I mean, look, again, I would like to give things away for free, but I also don't want to just be getting enough to live.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to actually make decent money and have a decent quality of life. So, I mean, yeah, if I not really, that's not really the kind of thing that I want. No, like,
Yeah.
there's a point of wealth where I wouldn't care about making money from something anymore, but I want to, like, have a future and not be saving like just a few $100s a month and just like no.
Yeah.
And then paywall where money trickles up to previous members. I don't that one I'd have to think more about, but it sounds like it has the same problem as the other one. I mean, it sounds like does that somehow give me scale? It needs to be able to scale. It can't be something where the money always goes into someone else's hands once it's just over some threshold where I have the basic amount to not be literally on the street. Like,
Yeah. No.
I've just done so much fucking labor for free for so long that it's just kind of crazy.
Dude,
Like,
I think it's totally reasonable, and I kind of wish
I
people.
don't want to. Sorry, I don't want to mislead. I have gotten good money from Patreon when I was doing actually like a lot of content creation, and there's some people who've reliably patroned for a long time. Obviously, I'm not counting all that, but nonetheless, it's still like if you don't have enough to live, you don't have enough to live, and that is fucked. And if you're scraping by or just barely saving, this is also not the kind of thing. Like, I want something that actually I feels like a stable, good life trajectory, not something that feels like it's like on the verge of fucking some descent into chaos. Sorry, what were you saying, Chris?
Yeah, no, I think that's totally reasonable. I think a lot of people, and especially young people, I guess, it's almost like they have an intuition that like getting paid for something or asking to get paid for something is bad or disrespectful or proves that you're doing it for the wrong reasons or something like this. Like, I just,
Yeah.
life costs money, and you just
Yep.
have like, I don't think that there's any shame in getting paid to do things, and even getting paid well to do things. I don't think that that makes it a bad thing. I don't think that you need some system where you're capping yourself at minimum wage or whatever. I mean, if you, I think that the kind of system you're talking about is potentially very scalable, and some content creators make a lot of money, and I think it can just be at your discretion when nobody needs to be pocket watching you and saying, oh, you're over a certain amount now, right?
Yeah.
I think it can be at your discretion that you say, I feel comfortable with this, whatever that level is for you. And if you are so inclined, there's a lot of good animal charities that you could give any access to. But I would also think that would be a better use than like giving it back to the first Patreon members or something like that. Who, like, why would that be the solution?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. Yeah, like, and this has actually been a problem for me where I had to shift my mindset because although I remember even initially setting up a Patreon, I had a lot of resistance to doing that. Um, but yeah, I I don't know. I've always have felt this like it literally doesn't make sense. It's like my emotions are like not aligned with my logical thinking properly on this, but it feels like I don't want to ask people for money. It feels like I'm asking for money to just like have fun or something like that. But that's literally not the case. It's literally like it's so far from the case that it's actually hilarious. Like there's so many things to think about here that just make this all look totally insane. The like not getting money for what you do. Like firstly is just like the kind of stuff I'm actually doing. Like doing like right now again it's a lot of it is code right now and right now I've been doing some stuff other than ask yourself but the actual code producing like Nix, Haskell, Elm, like all this shit. This is like pretty complicated niche coding work that you would need to pay someone a lot to do if you were paying them to do a project for you. So it's not like fucking free whatever. Another thing is I literally don't have income. Like
Yeah.
aside from what amount I get from Patreon and some other stuff, which it's not like a whole lot. It's basically enough for like some groceries and maybe a tiny bit beyond groceries and like toiletries and stuff, right? Like it's I'm not making like a whole shitload from that, just a little bit right now. So that's another thing. It's like I don't have a ton of money coming in. Then it's work that's actually costs a lot of money. And even when it's not coding, the content creation is like, I put my fucking mind and my time into that. It's not like it's worth fucking nothing. That's like actual real work. And then you consider other things like I'm so used to being someone who doesn't have a lot of money that I think of other people like that and I forget that they're not in that situation. There's
Mm-hmm.
people in my audience, even. There's people, and some of whom are very friendly and have offered to help out at various points, which I appreciate, of course. But there are people who, for them, giving away $10,000 is the equivalent of me giving away a penny. Like,
Yeah.
that's how easy it is for them to do that. So it's also so easy to, when you're asking for money, feel like you're asking a bunch of people who are in your situation. And it's
Mm.
like, no, you're asking a ton of people, many of whom are in a situation where that's totally different. And in fact, a lot of people who have, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say a lot, I don't know the percentages, but there are people who have a lot of money who are actually good people and who actively want to find good things to put money into.
100%.
And you're not making yourself available if you're not asking for money, or if you only have one like fixed tier $10 kind of thing, like so there's just all these things that just make that picture of like it's bad to ask for money so obviously wrong. But yeah, I have not successfully fully shifted my emotional state, so I always default into the wrong kind of framing for whatever reason with that topic.
Yeah, I think it's super common. I can see people in my chat saying the same thing, like still kind of feel like you can't charge even when you're providing, like clearly providing services, clearly providing some value. Like it just, yeah. The thing is, for most people, For most of your life, you're like in a job with a salary. Maybe at some stages you have some sort of salary negotiations, but it's probably pretty constrained within a band of like
Yeah.
10%. You know what your salary, right? So you don't really have to ever do asking for money, right? It's just kind of an expectation. I've got this job, shake your hand, here's my salary, right? You don't
Yeah.
really have to contend with, oh, I sent a client an estimate and it was twice as much as they were expecting or something like
Yeah.
that. But sometimes you do. And the good news about that is there's a potential a lot of upside because, like you say, some people have got money. Some people have got money, right? And they an amount of money that you would feel bad for asking for, somebody else wouldn't even notice if it went missing from their bank account tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So that's one thing. One thing for me, um, it's almost like talking yourself into charging more on the basis of, on like some altruistic basis, or this is how I experience it anyway. The idea that if you're charging too little for the thing that you're doing, you're undercutting the other people who are trying to do the thing that you're doing.
That's a good point.
Right. So that's one
Yeah,
frame.
I hadn't thought of that one. I appreciate that actually. That's another good angle.
Yeah, yeah. And I found in my business I started to feel comfortable sort of regularly charging more when I had staff that I had to pay and were expecting pay rises and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Kind of, I don't know, you feel a bit more comfortable going into bat on somebody else's behalf somehow.
Yeah, and you shouldn't need to that.
Mm,
You shouldn't, it's obvious you shouldn't need that, but I do understand emotionally that's just how it works. Like I feel like a kicked dog or something. Like where I've been like trained into some fucking ridiculous way of thinking where now I'm just like scared of like people trying to pet me or something like that. Like it's like let me just think about how to say this. It's like, okay, one thing is just I imagine how I would react to someone else coming to me and saying the things I'm saying. Like even in this conversation, I feel like the level to which I am going in my own head to justify just wanting to make
yeah.
some basic money from a thing I'm doing is insane. And I would look at someone who says that like a kicked dog. I'd be like, you don't need to feel like this. Like it's like you obviously have just been chewed up and spat out and abused by some horrible system that doesn't give a fuck about you. And on some level, at least some part of your psychology got broken from it. Like I would literally, if someone else came to me, I've had this I guess I won't name people by name, but I've had this conversation with some other people who are doing genuinely valuable work who are they feel bad asking for money, and I always end up saying to them like, dude, like the fact that you even feel remotely like this is a question is so deeply disgusting. Of course, what you're doing is valuable. Who else would even do exactly what you're doing? You have like a unique and useful voice. You have specific things. You've put in amounts of time that are totally fucking insane into this. And you are like for some reason incapable of shifting into a mindset where maybe it's okay to like deserve a little fucking something for that. Like it just so if someone else came to me talking the way that I talk, I would I would look at them like they had been mentally uh destroyed by some fucking insane system, and I would try to remind them of like why they fucking have value as like a human being and why what they're doing is meaningful. It wouldn't even be a question whether they should ask. Like of course they can ask for fucking some basic amount of money for what they're doing. Obviously, I would be more concerned with like look at what their psychology is. Like what the fuck has happened to this person? So yeah, I mean like not to exaggerate it, I'm a pretty happy person as long as I'm left to my devices and can work on my stuff. I don't feel some like deep fucking sadness constantly or something like that. But yeah, this particular part of how I think is obviously just totally fucked. Like I get it logically, but emotionally it's like not aligned. I mean, I'm sure probably it will be in time, but yeah, it's like you really when you're in the bottom rung of society, you really get fucking broken. And this is why we need a communist revolution. No, just kidding about the last part.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. There's definitely a bit of, someone in my chat said self-worth, where it's you got to believe in yourself, and it's a reflection of being confident that you can provide value and stuff like this. Is like
I
part
do
of.
sorry to cut in. I do have to say one thing though, which is I do have self-worth. And in most contexts I feel emotionally my self-worth. And in
Mhm.
this context, I do logically understand my self-worth to a point that the actual path I'm moving down is one that's reflective of that.
Yeah,
But there is a emotional level in this particular context, gut kind of starting position reaction kind of thing that is not coming from a place of feeling that. So I just want to clarify that I'm not a generally lacking self-worth like person. Yeah.
no, I got you. Yeah, and I feel the same way. Honestly, I'm like, I don't feel like an unconfident person or anything like that. But you're right. When there's a financial question, it just becomes very fraught. I will say, I think most people do have this to some extent and are just like uncomfortable. We're going to split the bill. How much is my part? Like it's already a little bit uncomfortable, and like, I wish we could just not be talking about money. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
And so I think that's probably for the best in most people's kind of life setup that they are just getting the standard salary and don't necessarily have to think about that much. I wonder if it might be worth somebody in your position to have almost like a manager or I know you have some kind of system that you're imagining doing for it now, but like if somebody else was in charge of setting your price and they got a percentage, so they were incentivized to sort of maximize the income. It might just be something that's worth delegating the negotiations. I don't. Are there some managers for content creators? I suppose that is a thing.
I don't know that I want to go down that road. I like the thought of kind of somehow externalizing it and then making it just like manage itself and
Hmm.
somehow incentivizing someone in the right way, like just kind of game theorying it. But I don't like the thought of paying them because I don't have the money to pay them. And I also don't like the thought of not myself building the right kind of mindset. Like I
Mm,
get it
mm,
logically. It's just like I was talking about with debate. Like if you feel anxious or have thoughts about, oh, I'm gonna get wrecked, like the right thing to do is just to find the correct thought, which I do think I have the correct thought generally about this, and then to ingrain the correct thought. This is
yeah,
just one where it's weird because it's not like a debate where like you're getting a chance to ingrain the right thing every time you have a conversation, and then pretty quickly you realize you've corrected the emotional thing. So you don't you it's like I don't know, maybe there's less like exposure and chances for correction, so it like takes longer, but I still view it the same way where I would rather over time just work my emotional state into alignment with my logical understanding than sort of like offset it, put it on someone else, and then not resolve it
yeah.
internally.
That's fair. Yeah, and I
I
think
do appreciate the tip. I can understand that. It's not a bad suggestion. I don't think it's the optimal one for me.
yeah, that's fair. And I think there is something to be said for what you're saying about basically capacity building. Like in the long term, you want to actually be able to manage that for yourself. It's a dangerous game to employ someone and their job is to be much better at negotiating than you are because their 10% fee can turn into 60% pretty quickly, probably.
You turn it. Sorry, so you turn what? Say again.
Well, I said if you're employing somebody because they're so much better at negotiating than you are, their 10% slice might turn into 60% pretty quickly. Hey.
Yeah, yeah, right. That's funny. Yeah, they just negotiate you, and then suddenly, yeah, you're paying
Exactly.
them more.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just where I'm at is like I have these kind of two paths. Like I have a like I will never fit in as a cog in the system.
Hmm.
It's psychologically just not going to happen for me. I could go into sort of speculation about why I'm like that, or talk about the kind of things that seem to happen when I put myself in those situations, but it's just like totally infeasible, and it is definitely to a point that I would sooner like commit suicide than do that kind of
Mm.
thing. Like
Sell
I
insurance or
could
something.
never be
Yeah.
like a 9 to 5, like I could tolerate it for some amount of time to get to a given destination. The idea of spending like any significant chunk of my life like that is just no. So there's really these like, and like I mean I've been in, this is like part of why I didn't continue with grad school. It felt immediately like I was on this trajectory to just infinite monotony or something. I
Hmm.
was like, okay, I'm like kind of passionate about it, but like not really, and it just feels like an endless, like, no, this is not the right thing. So for there's these like two paths basically for me now, where like there's one like, so okay, I basically know that what I need is self-sustenance, like at the level of like, like basically all around. I want to, do things like generate my own energy. I want to, have property, these kind of things. I don't want to be there's a whole ton of stuff that could be talked about there, but I don't want to be in the infinite getting extracted by a landlord, infinite working some job where some capitalist makes a shit ton of money off me. I'm not actually a Marxist for the record, but I relate to some of these things. So I think some of the
Hmm.
concepts are right. I think alienation is a really true concept. I think, there's some legitimate basis to be annoyed with these systems where you have these people who are in positions where they can infinitely make a shit ton of money off of you, and you're constantly putting in the labor and they're just kind of coasting there. I feel some of that stuff. So, you know, I need to somehow get to a place where I am basically self-sustained. Even things like food production, I would like to largely do that on my own. So I see a trajectory there, without even counting any of the ask yourself stuff. And that trajectory is very like tangible. And that's kind of the road that I'm moving down. And then the ask yourself stuff is this other thing, which is this passion project that I've had for a long time and that I'll certainly always continue to do. Um, but that I'd like to find a way to generate good money off of, because then it makes everything else easier and I can then put a bigger fraction of my time into it and just do cooler things with it and everything. So yeah, for me it's really like end goal is some kind of self-sufficiency, and I'm moving that way regardless, and ask yourself is a kind of parallel thing I'm doing with it. And if I can get ask yourself into a state where it's generating a good bit of money, then everything just becomes easier and better. And so I'm sort of hoping for that to work out well. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem infeasible, the like that, the monetization model roughly and what I'm trying to do. So,
Yeah.
I'll just have to see.
Did you ever stream? Not so much, huh? Just making videos.
No, and I probably will do some streaming in the future, but it's really because for me, I have this whole thing where like everything I do has to be something that I'm passionate about. Like
Hmm.
that's not literally true. Like I'm not passionate about brushing my teeth. I just want to have good, oral
Hmm.
hygiene, so I brush my teeth. Um I try to make the experience less boring by watching something when I do it. But the point is I really approach like all of life like this, where I want to be spending my time doing things that, for the most part at least, like the vast majority of what I'm doing, aside from like basic like things that are required for like bodily maintenance or
Hmm.
health or stuff like that, which even those I try to kind of augment in a way so I'm like learning while I'm doing them or something like this. Um, I want to be things that I actually care about, because I notice it just gradually obliterates my psychology if I let too much of stuff I don't care about build up. Like I don't know if you've ever seen the Ikigai diagram. Have you ever seen that? I might be saying it wrong too. I don't speak Japanese.
I didn't think so. Oh, yeah, I know. Where it's like meaningful work and give pride to.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's like the four overlapping circles, and it's like something that makes money, something you're good at, something the world needs, and something that's like morally meaningful. I forget exactly, but just picture that diagram having like an 80x weighting on something that I'm passionate about. And that's like the kind of psychology that I have. So I really like, that's how I approach my life. And streaming, I do actually think I'll probably do some streaming in the future because I see a purpose to it in the future. But right now, it's not something that I care to do. There's nothing I'm passionate about and want to stream about really currently. Like I do some little conversations, stuff like this. But in the future, that will be a bit different because I'm going to build up like one like this is like way past like version 1 of the site. This is like after I've built more and more stuff's happening. I'll eventually build a kind of streaming area into the site, and then I'll be able to do my own stream, and I'll have donations, and they can automate various things in the Discord or even automate things in the house if I want to. It could be kind of cool.
Mm,
It seems fun, and I can tell already when I think about that, that gets me interested and seems like fun, and it not like I'm just doing for money or something like that. And there's things that I'm would be doing with my time regardless. Like, I mean, there's going to be if it gets to a point, for instance, that my inbox is building up with tons of questions and it's getting a bit ridiculous to answer them, it could make a lot more sense to just like on Sundays just do an hour long fucking AMA thing where I just go over all those questions and just
yeah,
answer them verbally. Or if I'm doing a ton of programming that's not like security sensitive, I can just stream that programming. So there's a lot of things that I could just where streaming would just augment the experience where it's like,
yes,
okay, now I just can also make a bit of money from it. But also there's a bunch of people, some of whom are pretty awesome,
yeah,
who are like commenting and saying things and sometimes even giving useful input or telling me better
100%,
ways to
yeah.
do things. So that I'm interested in, but I'm not interested in just starting up a regular stream where I just it's just some new thing I have to maintain. Like it's a thing that I think will eventually happen when there's some other infrastructure and stuff in place and other stuff happening.
Yeah, yeah, because that feels like big opportunity. I do think that you could just be streaming, doing the stuff that you would have been doing on your computer anyways, and like vaguely talking to chat, and yeah, you're probably getting some useful input and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mostly on my streams, I'm just reading stuff, most of which is stuff that I've been like, I really ought to get around to reading this anyway, right? Um, so then it just becomes, yeah, like you said, an augmented version of that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about it. Like it feels like if I did it right now, like firstly, I'm doing so much of this programming that is security sensitive that I can't really share that stuff.
Hmm.
And I also don't have a good kind of like setup for it right now, so I'd have to invest like time into that. And then it would also be like yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm doing has me like shifting between systems and doing networking. It's just it doesn't lend itself to it, and it would just be a kind of obnoxious like burden that I'd have to maintain, and that I probably would not end up maintaining. So
Mm.
it's not right now, but yeah, I do think that in the future there will be at least some streaming, whether it'll just be a monthly or weekly like AMA kind of do like cleaning up the inbox sort of thing,
Yeah.
or if there's a lot of people around or things I'm already doing, I might stream again coding or maybe just playing games. Just I don't really play many games, but I do sometimes play a little bit. If Apex ever comes back, maybe I'll stream some of that. um but yeah, for it to ever grow into something that I would spend like a lot of time doing, it would need to be that the little bit that I'm planning to do anyway turns out being fun, and it turns out that there's some reasonable amount of people or growing amount of people who are actually interested in that. So it's kind of like some amount of it is inevitable because it makes a lot of sense and excites me to do a little bit. But then it ever scaling up to being like a large portion of where my energy is going for ask yourself related stuff, that's more contingent on sort of how it's received, I guess, and how I feel about it when I'm doing a bit of it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Um, yeah. You mentioned automating a lot of things. I have just started doing this in a way that I'm very enthusiastic about on
Okay.
business, Google Business or Google Workspace, I guess it's called. They've recently come out with AI automations where you can basically just type in plain language what you want to happen, and
Mhm.
Gemini, which is the Google AI, will work out the rest essentially. So I've got a ton of trigger events now. I'll get like a briefing in
Nice.
my chat half an hour before meetings. I get replies to all of my emails automatically drafted to like a better standard than I could hope to do in most cases.
Right.
Um, so all of that stuff's really good. And another good thing I found like AI use case that touches on what we've been talking about is as like a strategic sounding board, almost like a business consultant, or speak to ChatGPT about how much you should be charging for your stuff, right? That honestly, they'll kind of talk you up and
Yeah,
give
I
you a
have. That
realistic.
was
There
part
you
of how I
go.
realized the value of the coding I was doing. I was like, wait, if I was paid for this, I would be making like easily six figures
Yeah,
if I was getting money for the coding work I'm doing.
yeah, exactly. So I found that really useful. There's a guy on my team who is very much into AI and encouraging us to push the limits of using AI for all these kind of things. And he's just been super proactive in making the AI strategy consultant and the AI ops consultant. I had my big document with all my systems that no one reads because it's a big lumbering Google Doc. But now we've got a chatbot that you can go and ask, like,
Yeah,
how do I set up a new
right.
invoice or something, and it'll give you the links you need.
Yeah, there's some ways that AI can be used that are not great. There's stuff that's not good about AI, but leveraging it in the context where it works, which by the way is just going to be an ever expanding set of contexts and
Mm-hmm.
to a ever greater degree in any of those given contexts, is worth doing. Like, I mean, I use AI a lot for coding. I don't vibe code, which is basically where you aren't even looking at the code output. You're
Mm-hmm.
just talking to the AI and it's producing code for you, because that will work at a small scale. But again, these things are all contingent on the power of the AI. In the future, that you'll be able to vibe code something better than you'd be able to code. But I do find that it massively speeds up my coding. So
Yeah.
I'll produce quite a lot of code by telling the AI to do something, and then I end up going line by line quite carefully through that code to go, okay, they're doing that kind of weird. We need to tune that up, like, cut this thing out. So it does save me a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of blurts out a whole bunch of shit that I can then comb through and get into better shape, and sometimes replace entirely when it's just like, okay, what the fuck was he trying to do here?
Mm-hmm.
um and that's more efficient by a good bit than just literally doing all the coding by hand. um and yeah, there's various AI systems. Again, this is like, I don't know, I have a whole ton of thoughts about this. I haven't talked a whole lot about all the things I want to do with AI, but there are various AI related things that I'll set up. Like, one, and these things are money contingent also. I need to actually have money. But say that I, for whatever reason, end up with some money. Here's a few things. One is I'd like to go multilingual. So, for instance, with the
Mm-hmm.
Discord, I could easily make parallel Discords, like a French Discord,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, target some key languages, because there's a
Pregúntele.
lot of people who, pardon me?
Let's ask yourself in Spanish. Pregúntele.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of languages that could be targeted there. And, it seems like the English vegan space is like where the most philosophical work has happened. I might be wrong about that, but it seems like the other kind of spaces come to the English space and take the info from there. At least the other big space I'm aware of, like there's a big kind of Indian space for sure.
Mm.
And there's some others, but yeah, a lot of them seem to. It seems like the English space is kind of the hub. Maybe that's just because English is the kind of like global language, and like a lot of shit happens in it. What, I don't know. Anyway, point is, I don't see why we couldn't make it more accessible for other languages, and I'd really like to do that.
It's a
So
great idea.
with AI, this would be pretty simple given I have the money. Like, I would just spin up a ton of parallel AI servers, mirror all the channels, and then the messages that come through. I mean, you have to do some, like, maybe some rate limiting and some stuff to avoid getting trolled into spending a ton of money on
Mm-hmm.
translation. But the broad strokes, though, you just, for all the messages, you feed it into something like DeepL, like use the DeepL API, and then just have it generate the translations of that message, and then use like a webhook or something to post, so it looks like the same user posted the same message across all the other servers in all the associated languages. And then, the website, a lot of that can be
Mm.
done. AI voice stuff is, I'm not sure really at where I'd want to, so I don't think it's quite at a level right now. I might be wrong. Maybe Sophia or someone will correct me, but I don't think it's currently at a level where I could just like basically feed my videos to it and get like nice, really authentic sounding, like listenable audio across different languages with really good translation. So that part might need to be done manually, and that might limit the amount of languages. Like I could do the French, and there I know there's some people who do like Aputa might do the Hindi or something. So there's stuff like
Mm,
that. And another AI thing, there's various uses I could put it to in the Discord. Like I could do some level of moderation through the AI, for instance. I could have it like, periodically or maybe like every 20 messages, the bot would like talk to the AI, ask if there's a theme, give it all the themes of the channels, and ask if there's any ongoing theme here that aligns with the channel. And if so, redirect that conversation to the appropriate channel.
mm,
There's like a handful of other things. There's a ton of cool things that AI could help, like, I mean, stuff like what you're talking about, good, basically train an AI on all of the documentation. Once my knowledge graph gets big and has all the vegan stuff, all the NTT stuff, all the debate stuff, train an AI on that, then make it so people can just basically talk to that AI to
yeah.
navigate around through all the information. And I could name a ton of other things, but a lot of the AI stuff is limited though, because for me, just financially, because the code stuff isn't like, I have two servers. They're just cheapo servers. They're old. They could be, if they were people, they could be going to university by now. But I can run most of my stuff on there, and that's fine. So I can just code, and it costs me nothing but electricity. But the AI stuff, we're talking about paying for credits, so that just requires more money to be coming in. There's just no way around that.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a hell of a lot that could be done. Hey, there's endless. I like the idea about the languages. I think that's great. I've always thought that's such a silo, even in science. I'm pretty sure that there are like papers written in Chinese that have not been translated, and so like
Yeah,
humanity knows more stuff in Chinese than or in this domain than we do in English. Right? It seems ridiculous.
right,
That should be
right.
a bridge that's easily, or a gap that's easily bridged. One would think.
Yeah. You talked also about how you've been leveraging AI and automation stuff. There's also a ton of non-AI based automation that's really good. Like if you can afford it, it is really worth thinking about what kind of things you would like to have automated, and to just get a developer to do it for you, because it can
Mm,
seriously improve things. Like I feel a bit bad because I've been like working on some shit forever. I get thrown off the project here or there, and it's kind of like an iceberg where like there's a bunch of foundation, and then once the foundation's done, then I'm actually focused on mostly content, and the code I will be producing, I'll be iterating a lot faster on, and the stuff that gets produced will be tangible. Like right now, I feel like there's coding people in my community who kind of know what I'm up to, or who have looked at the code base and who get what's going on. But I think from the perspective of the average person in the community, they just hear me saying I'm coding and just have no clue when, if ever, that comes to an end.
right.
And they're just like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah, some of the stuff for the Discord will just be so fucking good. Like automating a really good inbox, like having logging and stuff like that, automating like threading, maybe set up a karma system. Like I mean, again, like you can tell hopefully that like I've just been thinking constantly about this stuff. So like I will build it into a really great thing. But yeah, just for you also, you should take that automation insight about, oh, the AI automation has really helped, and you should also understand there's a ton of non-AI based, so actually kind of like dumb automation that is equally helpful, and that can save you a ton of time and make things really like navigable and sensible for people. And you should just kind of try to get a bit into an engineering mindset, where instead of thinking what do I know how to do, you think what would I like ideally to happen? Like when someone comes into the Discord, what's the experience I want them to have?
Mm,
Don't think about how to do it, because then you'll cuck yourself because you don't
hmm.
know how to program. So you'll just like dead end yourself for no reason. Just think about what you want and just talk to a dev and just ask, is there a way to make this happen? And then they'll just do what an engineer does. They'll just feedback. They'll give you feedback. They'll be like, oh, we could achieve like so and so and so. And the things that are actually technologically limiting about your idea are like this and this. And you feedback to them. And then, an iteration or two in, you have some idea of what you're implementing. And now you have this whole feature that's going to make your Discord or whatever it is you're doing this for. Some of these automation systems could connect Discord to site. They could be just on the website. They could be things that they could be a whole ton of stuff. Then after a bit of feedback back and forth, you have a great idea of what you want to implement, and you can just set your dev on it and get some reasonable pay schema with them. And then next thing you know, you've got some really cool bespoke functionality that not everybody else has, and that really helps differentiate you, and also just makes your life easier and gives people a better experience. So yeah, I would encourage you to expand your that insight about the usefulness beyond AI to just automation in general.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Someone in my chat said this dude's going to end up a millionaire. His brain's going 1,000 miles an hour. I think you could hit it
Um,
big. Yeah, who knows?
let's hope so. That would be nice. Be down for $1 million. That would be fucking based.
Yeah, I think you can get there. I think you can get there. I think you've got a huge opportunity to leverage your current position. That's definitely something. Well, it sounds like you already did talk to AI about it a little bit, but like, you know, ChatGPT is going to know who you are. If you, I'm this guy, ask yourself, right? It'll have context and be able to make, you know, compare to YouTubers of a similar size and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it's
It
insightful.
does know who I am. If you ask ChatGPT about Ask Yourself, it'll say a bit of stuff. If you start asking anything detailed, it'll start saying weird shit though.
Okay, right. Yeah,
Anyone
yeah.
who's been making content for a while with any like decent size of people watching, which even just a little bit, I don't have a huge audience or anything, it'll probably be in its training data, and it'll know like a little bit about you.
Yeah, I guess it's just anything that can be Googled, right? It's similar.
Well, I don't know exactly where they pull the training data from. I would assume it's not all things that could be Googled. It's probably beyond that. I also don't know that anything Googleable will be in the training data, but you can kind of count on like pieces of info that are, visited reasonably frequently and that exist on large platforms like YouTube or Reddit or something like that. You can expect that kind of stuff to be in there. So if you've got a channel with like a few thousand subs, you're regularly pulling like a few thousand views or something like that, and you've been there for a while, it's probably at least got a little inkling of who you are.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty useful. Um,
Yeah.
no, that's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, we'll just have to see, because like I kind of told you, like I've just at this point I've just accepted. Like it became very clear to me, especially doing grad school. Like I didn't find it, not to like humble brag or toot my own horn, I didn't find it was intellectually challenging. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I mean it's just, it's more school. Like you can do school. I'm sure I could continue with this or go through up to a PhD. It's just more work, and it's just a bit more research focused. But I found it taxing. Like I found it like just it was the same way a 9 to 5 job is taxing. It
Mm.
was not as bad, of course, but yeah, it became very clear to me that like, okay, this I will probably actually end up like literally committing suicide if I continue on this track. Like this is
Mm.
not a feasible pathway for me. So that was really the thing that kind of like pushed me over the edge to just like, okay, I just have to go all in to like make my own trajectory work, which is again this dual kind of AY self-sustainability. I didn't get into the other side much, but it's really that.
Yeah, what is the other?
And
I'm
it
curious
could,
about the other side. Do you want to say more about that?
sure.
Or is that
I'll just finish my
Yeah,
first
yeah,
thought.
pardon me.
It,
Yeah.
it, it could fail to pan out.
Hmm.
And in that case, I think I probably would commit suicide, because I don't think that I would see much point in like I'm not doing the 9 to 5 thing. It's just like I would be that is sufficiently miserable for me that I wouldn't see much point in living. So I'm kind of just at a point where like a lot of people, I think the trade-off is like try to build your own thing, try to somehow get into the position where you're not just like the worker. It feels too risky, it feels too uncertain, and it's easier to follow the beaten pathway and just accept cuckoldry. No, I'm just kidding, it's not cuckoldry. Like I actually have a lot of respect for people who work more kind of like regular jobs, even just simple jobs. Like I mean, actually some of them I've actually have become interested in. I'll get into that, like plumbing, electrical work. But I actually have plenty of respect for people who do that, and I don't think there's anything inherently like worse about it. It's just a psychological thing where it does not align well with my psychology. So yeah, for me, so I think for a lot of people, they look at the trade-off if they ever consider it. A lot of people just go down the beaten path and never really consider any kind of entrepreneurial sort of trajectory. But for those who do, I think a lot just think, well, it's too risky. Like it's just not. But for me, I realized, well, no, the counterfactual is probably I'll kill myself. So there's like, it's really just like there's not much of a choice. You have to do your own thing. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing, and the plan is just to make it work. The other pathway, it's not entirely clear, but basically, so it became clear to me that I need to acquire property, and that I need to be able to construct things on that property and get into a situation where I own the land, I have a structure on the land, and I am able to produce some significant amount of what I need on the land. And also, I will make point out something here. A lot of people get into some insane situation where now they're just working this like massive, massive amount of hours on their land. I think
Right.
good engineering and leveraging technology can actually make it so it's more like a front loading kind of thing where it takes a lot of work to get it set up, but then it's doing a lot of stuff for itself. So yeah, that kind of became clear to me. You like basically you want to get into some kind of situation where you're not constantly having to fend off the wolves with the next payment, which requires
Mhm.
you to go put in more effort in something that you feel about. Again, I just want to be really clear. I'm not shitting on people who are working regular jobs. If you're psychologically geared towards that and you don't find it breaks your mind, and you're actually maybe you're kind of lucky because
Mhm.
you don't have to face this whole dilemma and uncertainty and all this stuff. But yeah, so that general thing became clear to me, and then the sort of overall vision has gradually gotten clearer and clearer. And it's not fully clear, but I think that essentially I'll want to acquire property. There's ways to do that that are affordable. There are things like tax sales, where they sell off land on which the tax hasn't been paid. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you have to be careful with here. You have to watch for like liens on the property, or like
Mhm.
someone who has like a right of way or something like that, mineral rights, timber rights. You have to look at like soil quality. You need to know about like the weather, how it operates across the different times of year and stuff. But basically, there are ways to get property for costs that aren't totally crazy. There's also the idea of possibly going somewhere else in the world. And actually, I've been building this kind of crazy little app once with some amount of my time where I've been giving it like geolocation data, and I want to give it other data on things that matter to me, like gun rights, political stability, climate, and actually have it whittle down cost of living, healthcare access. Like there are data sets on a lot of these things. You can have it, kind of whittle down the optimal areas. So it's a side project because there's some stuff I'll need to do way before this. Um, but yeah, I actually think the probably one of the best ways to find out where you want to be property wise is actually to build an app and feed it a ton of data. But anyway, there's ways to get property for costs that aren't totally fucking crazy, like things like the tax sale, possibly going somewhere else in the world. It's really just as long as you have the time over time to search and you do your due diligence, that is possible. Then on property, I basically need to be able to construct. I'll talk about how I'm thinking about getting the skills to do this, but I need to be able to get to a point where I can do basic carpentry, electrical, plumbing, masonry, and actually build something. There's certain things that are regulated, like you can't plug your house into the grid. You can rough something in, and then an engineer has to approve it. And there's similar stuff with plumbing, but these are learnable skills. And you can get water too. Like if you have a water source, you can use water to generate energy for you. You can use solar energy. You can use things like a ram pump, which is actually hilarious. Like this is one of the craziest fucking inventions. A ram pump is a kind. Do you know what a ram pump is?
No.
It's like a hydraulic pump that powers itself just by the flow of the water. So it's non-electrical. So it can actually pump water. There's an equation that'll describe how many feet of pumping you can get based on features of the pump and stuff, but it can actually pump water uphill without electricity. It's really fucking crazy.
Hmm.
So you can set up like some kind of ram pump based system. You can augment it with like water catchment or a well or some other stuff. Though with wells, you have concerns like pumps kind of running out of pump failing or something like that. So you probably don't want to rely entirely on that. And anyway, you can figure out ways to get water. There's ways to heat properties, assuming I don't go to somewhere warmer, because there's also considerations like the plant fortitude zones. So, where what's the lowest seasonal temperature, what kind of things can you grow there? Um, and there's, if assuming you need to heat, there's things like masonry heaters, which like so hilarious. People like there's things like geothermal, which is really cool. There's things like there you could set up some kind of wood stove or something, but masonry heaters are kind of cool. I really like the things. Part of me has like a little bit of a prepper mentality, like
Hmm.
not really like if you think of preppers and you think of like a scale kind of where like at one end you have like the most trivial things that like will absolutely happen, like it will happen, you would bet money it'll happen in the next like year or two, like there will be a power outage, like
Right.
you have this a prepper who's ready for that, right? And then you have like the other end of the spectrum where you've got like, I don't know, like fucking civil war, like I don't know, like a zombie apocalypse. You have prepper who's like ready for that. I'm like probably somewhere on sort of like the low middle kind of end of the spectrum where I would like to be ready for like internet outages, for power outages, and for things like pandemics. Like if a pandemic happens, I don't want to need to go into the city. I want
Hmm.
to not have to go into the fucking hotspot. I want to be able to sustain myself and wait something like that out. Excuse me. So anyway, sorry that the image is taking a while to build up here, but
Yeah, that's okay.
basically you can get self-sustenance across a ton of these dimensions. You can produce food. There's things like, I mean, there's greenhouses, but there's things like permaculture also, which takes longer to set up, but then maintains itself better. Yeah, heating masonry heaters are kind of it's just this hilarious thing where it's like it uses the thermal mass of this big heating unit to it burns the fire way hotter than a normal a stove or oven or whatever would, and then all that heat goes into the thermal mass, and then the thermal mass is like emitting all this heat radiantly through your house for like a huge amount of time, so you don't have to fill it nearly as often. It takes like way less wood. So you can get your heat for free like that if I'm in an area that requires heating. So basically there's all these systems and there's all this front loading, and if you can just get into a place where you've constructed a building, you have water coming to it, ideally multiple sources, you have energy coming to it, again, ideally multiple sources. There's things like small head hydro. You don't need a fucking dam anymore. Look at turbulent turbines. There's hydro that, as long as you have like a little gradation and a full year long stream, you can power a fucking building off that. There's ways to generate your own food, your heat, all of these things basically. And then all you're left with really is like property tax, and there's ways to decrease that. Like in Ontario, if I were to set up here, if you can produce like $7,000 worth per year of farmed food, you can get the Ontario farm tax credit, which then cuts your property tax rate down to a quarter of the residential rate. So
Nice.
imagine having like a whole self-sustaining property where your only expense is a quarter of what the residential rate is
Hmm.
for property tax. There's things like there's and I also some of these communities have so much retardation. Like there's a lot of these people in sort of spaces like homesteading and stuff who have weird,
Homesteading. Yeah, that's
crazy.
what I keep thinking. Yeah, yeah.
Some of them have like some of it's great. Some of them have really weird, crazy like carnist ideologies.
Hmm.
But there are things like honey. Like I don't consider the flow hive non-vegan. That's like a fully vegan thing. It doesn't upset the bees. It just drains. I mean I would love to see the arg. If that is not vegan, then I do not care about being vegan. But as far as I'm
I've
concerned,
never
that's
heard of
vegan
that.
honey. Um, yeah, it's interesting. It just the combs are split in the middle, so you just twist a little metal rod, and then they become unaligned such that the honey can flow through them, and then it just flows out, and like the bees don't even react.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's things like that. I mean, you could just set up a bunch of those, produce honey, and just passively, like, you're barely doing any work. You just turn a little fucking thing, drain it every few months, and you make a bunch of money off of that. So anyway, I think this is the right pathway to get into some kind of self-sustaining kind of thing. And then it's just the how to get there. So the more that I've thought about the practicalities, initially I was like, okay, well, do a few years at like Conestoga or something. Like go and like they have programs there, like 1 year carpentry, 1 year masonry, and like learn the stuff. But then the more I thought about it, the more I found that I was hitting these kind of intellectual barriers because I'm a perfectionist about how I build systems, and I know what it's like to be able to think at like the proper level of abstraction about something. Like in the context of software, I know what it's like to be able to think like an engineer. Or philosophy, as I said earlier in this convo, I think a lot of about philosophy like conceptual engineering. Um, but I don't know how to think about physical systems in an engineering kind of way, and I don't have the like I don't have the understanding there. So there's part of me that actually feels incomplete, where it's like I can do concepts, I can do virtual stuff, I can't do physical stuff. So I might actually be interested in doing some kind of co-op based, I want money while I'm doing it, engineering program. So I might go do something like go do like civil eng at like Waterloo or something like that. But anyway, I think that's enough info to paint the picture. The general idea is just there's a way to self-sustain, and the basic pathway there is going to be some combination of acquiring these fundamental skills and somehow getting good enough at the engineering side to plan things well, which might actually just amount to doing another degree, actually. So yeah, that's that pathway. And then AY is like the parallel pathway, which if that starts generating money, that would make my whole life easier. And I'll just always do that anyway because it's fun. So long answer. That was probably a solid like 10 minutes, but there you go.
Yeah, that's super interesting to hear about. So you're basically talking about making a home that will not have any of the regular expenses incurred by regular homes.
Yeah, just having that whole canvas there. When you have property, you can do other stuff. Build like a workshop. You can build all sorts of fucking crazy stuff. Like imagine just having like the same way with software. I can just make arbitrary virtual objects. Imagine knowing how to make pretty arbitrary like physical objects. It wouldn't be fully arbitrary. There's different kinds of engineering, chemical, whatever. But like maybe like civ eng, like basically make building type objects. So you could do all sorts of stuff. Build a fucking ram pump with a little pump house and have some big fucking basin to store water in. Build out like a nice sturdy fucking concrete building. Build like a workshop. Like you could just, it's just that it feels like I would just be able to like unleash my mind and just do
Mm.
like so much fucking cool shit. So yeah, that kind of trajectory is roughly the direction that I want to move in, because I'm never gonna work as a fucking cog in the system. It's just psychologically impossible for me, and it's not clear that Ask Yourself will ever generate enough money to be something I can live off of. So, although I'll still move down that pathway at whatever rate I can because I like it anyway, and it would be nice if it did start doing that. uh, this is a pathway that is a lot more stable. Like I can just get a degree, I can just get these skills, and I can work enough to get a basic amount of money to be able to construct the things that I need to. So
Mm.
I could free myself from financial oppression like that.
I see. And yeah, because I mean, presumably, I mean, depending on the amount of time and initial investment, or yeah, ongoing time investment, I guess, and then setup costs and so on. I mean, it'd be great to have this self-sustaining, never have any bills kind of house, but presumably there's a high cost to setting up and or maintaining it, such that if you were spending all of your time farming or whatever, then you might well think, shouldn't I have just been a programmer and gone to the supermarket?
Yeah, I have thoughts about that. I drank so much Kool-Aid at the start. I have to go take a piss, but I will be
No
back.
worries. No worries. How are we doing, guys? Some people are not happy about the honey thing. Uh-oh. Hey, Jeremy, nice to see you. J-Lo, I call you in my mind, Jeremy Loeb. Jerry from the block. Hey Bob Miller, hey Garden Swell. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for joining. Who's in on it? Who's joining AY's commune? Ask if he can heat himself by entailment by explosion. Nice, there's been a lot of people in and out. Hey Race Lever, hey Tox. Oh, hey Joe, how's it going? Ask GPT about Ask Yourself, it said a bunch of weird shit. Damn. Yeah, for a while, if you Googled Chris Bryant vegan, the little Google AI summary said that I only eat beans due to a misinterpretation of something that I said on a podcast, which is I said something like some people think that vegans only eat beans, and Google evidently took that to mean that that's the case for me. Alas, I don't know if it still does that. How are we rating this red swirl? Are you enjoying the swirl? Shall I change this up? We can have a blue one for a little while. No, I don't like that one as much. How about Cosmos Relaxation? That's a pretty nice one. Multicolored explosions. This one looks like it could be good. No, what do you think?
Okay, I have returned. Sorry to like talk so much, and that you asked though, so it's your fault. And then leave the second you had anything to say. But I did hear what you're asking about, like, oh, what if now you've created a new burden for yourself? I don't know if you want to say more. I have stuff I can say about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, have at it. Because I mean, I've had that kind of thought before of like, hey, it'd be great if I never had to pay for vegetables again. Why don't I grow all my own vegetables? But of course, it's a pain in the ass to actually do that, right?
Yeah, well, so I have a few things to say. So, I mean, firstly, when you look at people who've tried to get off of the grid or set up some kind of self-sufficient uh property for themselves, there are patterns in how people fail because a lot of people fail.
Hmm.
There's also patterns in how people succeed. A lot of the people who fail don't realize what they're getting into and don't engineer. So this is like a big thing to me with like I'm honestly might be willing to just straight up go and do a degree, especially somewhere like Waterloo where you can it's like heavily co-op based. So, you know, it's like a really good school. I think I could get in. My grades are high enough to get in. And you know the it would having the engineering mind, like I know what it's like to be able to engineer things and the difference that it makes to be able to approach something like an engineer. So I think, yeah, a lot of people fail out of not planning. I think a lot of people fail out of like not realizing what they're getting in and they just end up with some big horrible hard to maintain stuff. And a lot of people fail because they're fucking carnist scum and they try to bring a bunch of animals and do crazy shit with like I hate the some of these communities how much animal shit is going on.
Hmm.
There's crazy Holocaust apologetics in the homestead community. It's disgusting. But yeah, so I think that that's a big thing. And I think that well, there's another point which is depends which things feel like labor to you, right? Like
Hmm.
one person might look at how much time I spend coding and go, "Well, like you're basically working like a full-time job for no pay." And I mean, I do need some pay. So
Uh-huh.
that is a pretty important thing that I'm working towards getting, but it doesn't feel like a full-time job to me because it's just fun. I mean, there's a bit that of anything that can be horrible, but I mean, it's mostly just fun and enjoyable. And so there's also that question of, is the labor that you will have bad? But I think basically through a combination of the of planning and being interested in the labor, it actually would not be that bad. Especially also leveraging technology, because I do know the whole software side. Like I know how to just program a server. And then basically anything I need, like water pumping, watering of things, checking of pH level, like there's a whole ton of stuff that I could just automate. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't like the thought of you try to become self-sufficient and then you just create yourself some infinite hellhole.
Hmm.
Like that would suck. But yeah, I think through good planning and a genuine interest in building these systems that it could be great. And I think it'll be a lot more like a front loading, which my general approach to life is front loading. Like, I with all my code stuff, like why do you use these crazy languages? Why build the whole thing on Nix? Why use Haskell? Why use Elm? Why blah blah blah? Why engineer a whole fucking network? Why do it? Well, because if I just do like look, I do understand the point about over engineering. It is possible to over engineer something, but when you actually think through your needs and you think through how you're going to need to scale and you consider what work you're inevitably going to have in the future, you can just get rid of a whole fuckload of that by front loading it. Do it. So I think yeah that you could really front load a lot of the labor with kind of smart planning and then get in a situation where there's not really that much maintenance required. Yeah, and I think also knowing how to do the maintenance and having the relevant skills so things get built well is like a huge part of this. So,
Mm.
yeah, engineering, automation, front loading, enjoying what you're doing. I think there's always going to be work, but I think that it could be a lot more after you get the work in, a kind of thing where like you wake up in the morning, you put in like, hour or 2 hours, whatever is required to like end certain things, and then the rest of the day, you're just doing what you want. You probably have projects you're building out, but I'd make content and do stuff like that, work out. Yeah, that is like a life that I'd be very, very happy with. Not
Yeah,
for everybody, though.
I definitely resonate with the points about like what feels like work to you, and it's when you are doing something of which the ultimate beneficiary is you, then it's pardon me, it's much more it's much less infuriating, basically, right? And I think that's similar to
Yes.
like being self-employed as opposed to working for someone else. You definitely have a sense of I actually want to do this. I want to get this done. It matters to me.
Yes.
So yeah, I hear that. But then, I mean, you were talking about learning plumbing and masonry and everything. That sounds like a hell of a lot of skills.
Oh, it just seems so exciting to me. Like
Fair enough.
it's so funny because these are things that my dad knows how to do, and he tried to show me these things when I was young, and I was never interested. I just didn't care. And I really wish I had have taken the time to learn. But no, these are like I would have fun learning these things. This would be very enjoyable for me. Um, and yeah, just being able to actually do these systems, like, I mean, plumbing isn't just like fixing toilets or something. Like I mean, you can do it's knowing basically how to set up water involving systems. There's tons of cool stuff you could do. Build shit like an organic pool. That'd be a cool project. Or build like something like the ram pump system. Or like these are things that would be fucking amazing. So yeah, I mean, got to think about how to spend my time 'cause it takes time to acquire these skills. But I mean, I would like to know how to do these things, and then just I want to be able to think about the things I require in order to live in the same way I think about software. I know how much better life is when I can just look at what I need and build the thing I need in a way that's fucking awesome, and then just have this hilarious thing and then flex on the noobs with it. Like that's what I'm kind of kidding about that, but I mean I know what it's like though, and that I need to be able to think about my physical surroundings in that way, because then life will just, as long as I can get the basics in place, like enough money at the outset, which again co-op can help with that, just getting some initial money, get then maybe do a few years of work or like EIT or something like that, because it could also, in this whole process, I could just actually just become a professional engineer if I wanted to. Like, you just do
Mm,
some years of EIT after, make a chunk of money in that time, and then you're like 40 or something. But like by that time, like, you're a professional engineer, you have some skills to do building shit, you've got a chunk of money, like, it might be just fine. Again, I wouldn't mind work like that if it were in service of something that I care about, even if it's less than I could make like doing software or whatever.
fair
Sorry,
enough.
I was trying to address what you said. Um, yeah, I just need to be able to think about my physical space in the way that I think about virtual space, and I want to just have this canvas of a property where I can just build the things that are meaningful to me. Like, oh, I want to build a little building to build like a mini fucking little data center in and put like racks of servers in, or like, oh, I want to build like a little fucking like a gym building or something.
Yeah,
Like, just whatever, like I don't know what I'll want to do, but it's just I want to be able to have that creativity rather than the infinite cuckoldry of renting, where it's just
right.
all my money is going to some dude somewhere, and I can't do anything with the property. I'm
Hmm.
like highly limited. I can't build out systems. Like, again, you got the whole perspective of the system stacking thing,
Yeah,
right? Like, it takes a while to front load, but you build one system, you build the next, you build the next, and then after a while, you're not having to put in all the fucking input that you had to put in the start. Your systems are doing a lot of the work for you, and you are then more relaxed, and you have a lot of things generating stuff for you.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's so striking to hear you say that you want to learn like plumbing and electricity. It's such a different code to where I think of you. I feel like Peter Singer's told me that he wants to get really into playing rugby or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just
That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I've always been, I think, kind of pragmatically driven, although I don't think I always realized it. Like, I mean, even like with philosophy, I sometimes do get interested in abstract problems and just enjoy thinking about the problem. But a lot of the philosophy stuff that I've learned has been because there's some pragmatic sort of real world end that I want to bring about. Like, I want to make the case for veganism, or I want this discourse to get better, or something like that. And then there's some philosophy learning that happens. Like, oh, these people are objecting in this kind of way. What the fuck does that mean? And then you look into that, and then you rabbit hole that shit, and then it changes how you approach it. And you know I don't just spend all my time reading like, people who know a
mm,
lot of philosophy and talk to me will be able to pick up on this, that like, yeah, I know how to think philosophically, and that's probably one of the most useful skills I have. Like, some of the most useful things I've ever learned are how to think like an engineer and how to think like a philosopher. um Not that I claim to be an amazing philosopher or an amazing engineer, but I can do these things reasonably well, and they have had a massive impact on my life. But yeah, it's always had this kind of pragmatic thing going on, where like, really, there's just things I want to make happen in the world,
mm,
and philosophy is sometimes the tool to do that. And it's similar with code. Like, I'm not just, I guess maybe someone might look at me and think I'm just really passionate about like abstract code shit, but like, I'm not here like learning every fucking language feature of Haskell, or boring fucking deep into the core of the Linux kernel or something. It's like, no, like, there's things I want to do. Like, I want to be able to make my videos and give them to people and make money from them and build things in the Discord that do shit. And what's the best possible way to do that? And then you end up learning some pretty niche technical things in order to do that the best way. But there's a kind of goal that's not actually really about coding or about philosophy that's driving the interest in philosophy or coding. And it's very similar with this stuff. I don't have an abstract interest really in like the flow of water or something, but like,
hmm, yeah.
plumbing is a thing that would allow me to bring about a bunch of things in the world that would be useful. So suddenly it's like, well, I think I'm really interested in fucking plumbing. That's kind of how it happens, I guess.
Fair enough. Yeah, and you don't have the intuition to like, just get a plumber.
Well, it could be. cool to work with a plumber and to get
Uh-huh.
some. There's with some of these things, there's things like the Red Cross, and there's hours you put towards it. So if you're going to be doing a certain amount of work on your own property, it might be smart to like hire a plumber and then have those hours count towards something,
Okay.
especially if you think there's any reasonable probability of hitting longevity escape velocity, because then there's a lot of things that seem irrational because of time horizons. Like, how would you become like a fucking karate master and a red seal carpenter and an engineer and this and that? It's like, well, if our lifespan is going to be a lot longer, then that's how.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's
Okay.
also things like that. But no, hire a plumber. I mean, yeah, well, I mean, you'd have to hire a plumber to do the roughing in, but no, I care a lot about DIY. Like, I've really come to this view that DIY is like the best way to do things. Like, there's things you can't DIY. You can't like DIY fucking, I don't know, probably like a car or something. That'd be pretty hard to DIY. But like I gradually fell into this. First it was from coding and noticing like, oh hey, I can like get a old fucking haggard server to do a ton of shit. Linux knowledge gives you the necromancer perk, and you can just revive old fucking systems and make them function like new, because Linux is just not this trash like Windows. That becomes more and more demanding, and then you have to upgrade your hardware to even be able to run the operating system. um and I kind of realized, like, at some point, it just there's like a series of realizations. Like, at one point I remember I was sitting there, I was working on some computing problem, I had never worked on it before. I didn't know how it worked, but I had the documentation open, I had a little terminal, I was typing, and I had full confidence that, like, okay, well, at some point I'll type something, I'll get a bit of feedback, that'll give me a foothold, and I'll be able to blast through and I'll get this thing working. And I just realized I had a little metacognitive moment where I was like, oh, I just know how to make a computer do what I want it to do now. Like, yeah, I know the procedure. I'm just not worried about this anymore. I can just make these things do what I want, given enough time to hammer away at it. And it was that, and realizing like that when you DIY, like, there's a whole series of realizations, but basically I just when you DIY something, it's cheaper. You can get it done immediately. You can get it done custom, so it's exactly the way you want it. And you can do maintenance on it, so you don't incur a maintenance burden, and you're not dependent on people. Where I have a general aversion to being dependent on people. I'm not like some crazy deontological anti-dependence person or something like that. Like, I mean, I don't like proprietary software. I'm not like deontologically anti proprietary software, where I'm like Richard Stallman saying that, like, young children should refuse to use Microsoft Word and like get in fights with their teachers about, like, I mean, there's like limits on these things. But yeah, I just think DIY is basically always better. So with like, if I'm going to be building, I want to just know how all of the parts work, and be able, if a part stops working or needs to be altered, or even how it gets designed in the first place, I want all that under my control and my knowledge to be the key to make all of that happen. I don't want magic where I need some other guy or
Hmm.
girl or they.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. That's so interesting because I find myself having the opposite drift throughout life where I'm like, DIY for me, DIY is usually the worst option for getting something done. Simply, I'm not very handy. I put up my living room curtains are a mess, and I have been for years because I put them up when
Yeah,
my missus went away, and she probably wouldn't have let me do. She probably wouldn't have let me do it otherwise. But
yeah.
even simple things like that, I'm like, fucking hell, I should have just got a bloke in to do this. But yeah,
Yeah.
and then I suppose if you are doing that, you have to kind of lean into some form of specialization where you're then like, okay, so I need money to pay the curtain man, so I guess I have to specialize in doing my job more so that I can, right? That's the other
Well,
option, I
I mean,
guess.
I guess I get that point of view. I was like that for a long time. I was like, I like concepts. I like philosophy. I don't do a bunch of these other things. I just shifted for whatever reason. I
Mm,
got into a different mindset. Like, when I think about the curtains, I'm like, well, there's some optimal way to do it. And
yeah.
like, the best way, probably, you probably learn a whole bunch of stuff about how buildings work, but You know, there's probably some tool like a fucking something that casts like a lever or the electric beam or a light beam or something and gives you like a perfect level. And there's probably some procedure and you could
Hmm.
like learn it and then hang the blind really well and it would just be worth doing. But no, I also understand the other perspective. Like, I mean, Avi, one of my very, very best friends, he's like the complete opposite. Like he doesn't relate to any of this at all. He's like, fuck that. Like I worked my whole life to become some like fucking multi-millionaire doctor motherfucker. Like I have all this money now. I'm not doing any of that. I'm paying somebody for everything. So
Yeah,
I get it. It's not the way I think. Even if I had a bunch of money, I actually would think in the same way. I just value the doing it myself, and I enjoy that. And I yeah, but I get the other mindset though.
fair enough. Yeah. Hey, oh, well, there you go. There you go. I didn't know Avi was a multi-millionaire. That's a good bit of goss.
Well, I don't think he currently is, but he's on that trajectory. Like he's making quite a lot. Like it's I think he's like well over 1 million in a year now.
Wow, really? What, from being an MD?
Well, I mean, he's very specialized. He's a dermatopathologist. So yeah, I mean, it's one of the highest paying areas if you can get into it. It's funny because people sometimes dunk on him like as if like, you know, his time's not worth that much, and it's like you have no idea how much money that guy makes. His time's worth quite a lot.
Right.
So the random Discord fool who's like being really demanding should maybe consider what they're asking.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, that time's not free.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, someone said in my chat, DIY for Chris is don't involve yourself. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can understand that. It's just a different mentality. It's not how I think anymore. Um,
For
I
sure. That's
I
fair.
get
Well,
it.
you'll be more useful if there's a zombie apocalypse. You'll know how to do, rebuild society and everything like that.
Well, those aren't really the kind of situations that I'm particularly concerned with preparing for. I'm thinking more about like power outages or like maybe some mildly more intense things like pandemics, but not particularly worried about like, you know, the collapse of society or something like that. That seems a
Seems like
little
we should be more. Yeah, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be too confident about that. Is Trump still talking about invading Canada?
yeah, yeah. I mean, to be fair, if you're already preparing to a certain level, just naturally, uh, whatever. If the extra effort required to be prepared for some less likely but more dangerous situation isn't too much, then why not? But I'm not going way the fuck out of my way to be ready for like a zombie apocalypse or something like that.
Fair enough. I do have a bit of a survival bag that I made last year in my loft. It's a hiking backpack and it's got a lot of like water purification and stuff like that, foil blanket and stuff like that. I'm imagining that the end of the world's going to be very camping based. Um,
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I kind of there's like these different schools of thought, like sort of bugging out, bugging in. And obviously you could get driven from your home, so you want to be able to bug out if need be. But it seems to me like you're way better off having a stable base camp where you can
hmm.
have everything set up from the outset. Like you can get gardens and food and like you could even have electricity and stuff like this. Like versus going out into the world. Like I mean, it depends what level of apocalypse you're fucking picturing here, but like you know, if you're picturing like food systems have broken down, people are dying of starvation or like flooding out into the countries and eating all the fucking animals and the farmers' fields and stuff like that. Like, you know, you're getting owned. Like you and your little camping bag are like, I mean, you can try, but like, I think that if that's the kind of stuff that you're preparing for, I think the kind of thing that you're gonna want really is to be in like a remote area and self-sufficient.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not like these kind of things are not as big concerns for me, so I'm not super concerned about the like remote area stuff, but like you would want to be well outside of the city because if there's ever some kind of like large scale social collapse, like the city, all the resources get eaten up and you get chaos and then people start spilling out of it. And then, you know, that's like they consume the surrounding farmland, anything close to a highway totally annihilated, like
Hmm.
and a lot of those people, especially in areas with cold winters, are gonna die off. But if you're like, 8 hours out of town and like fucking like in my case in like northern Ontario or something like that, like yeah, you're probably good.
Yeah.
Especially if additionally you have like a fortified building and guns and stuff and like know your neighbors and there's a whole ton of stuff having like SDR set up so you can, do like communication, get vital information even if the internet's down. There's like the prepping thing goes like very deep and is
I
like a
bet.
huge
Yeah.
rabbit hole. It's kind of weird because like a lot of the people who are in that community have views that are like way more intense than the kind of views I have, but I do think I would consider myself a prepper, at least in mentality, if not in the way I actually live my life. But yeah, again, I think I'm just a bit more maybe like rational about it or something, or maybe I don't know. I have like a probability distribution over the
Hmm.
kinds of situations that might occur, and I'm not like particularly worried about the really fucking insane kinds of situations. So there's certain things that preppers worry about that I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, I would do that if the cost to doing that were very low, but
Yeah.
I'm not going way out of my way to prepare for that particular contingency.
That's fair. Yeah. I think I spent a couple of £100 on like various sort of camping and survival things. Remember, of course, it's gonna be funny if the end of the world happens. I put out my my survival bag, and it's like all completely unused stuff, most of which I don't really know how to use. Some of which have still got the Amazon receipts attached. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna prove myself to be a noob pretty quickly when that happens.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think it's good to have a bug out bag. Like, you could have some kind of like disaster that happens in the city or something. Like, who the fuck knows? Maybe there's some kind of like chemical leak or some big like fire or something like that, or maybe there is civil unrest or a pandemic or so. Like there could be some kind of thing that requires you to like get mobile and get out and be able to like make it a certain distance or something like that. But yeah, I don't think you're gonna survive any kind of long, like SHTF sort of situation with like a bug out bag and no like fundamental skills or like home base or anything like that. You'll be like out there camping for a while and then you'll be like, okay, well now what? Am I gonna try to fucking like hunt squirrels or like
Mm,
scavenge or something for like berries or some shit? And yeah, I mean you're basically done once those resources are done, unless you have again some kind of property where stuff is
can
generated or you
generate
have
things. Yeah.
skills to like forage and do stuff like that. And I mean, I guess you might maybe if your utilitarian concerns lead you in this direction, maybe go and like rob people or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, it's not looking good. I think that the right prepper approach is the home base kind of like bug in thing. The bug out thing seems like a last ditch like escape some fucking imminent chaos and just try your best to not die instantly kind of thing. The bug in thing seems way more like you could actually last out a long term disaster like that.
If only you have enough tins of beans in your garage, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but even that, like, I mean, really, like, I don't know. There's probably data on this, like how, like, when you have social disasters, like, how long do they typically last? I don't know. You probably look at like hurricanes or look at, I don't know, other things and see how long you need to last. And maybe you can do this with like a bunch of like freeze dried food or like
Mm,
canned food and stuff like that. But I think really ideally you'd want to be able to produce food. Like
mm,
I mean then you're like pretty much golden. Like you should have stores of food, but if you can produce food, like say you're already growing some significant portion of your diet and like push comes to shove, you could live off of what you produce. It would just be a bit less varied, maybe a bit less tasty,
hmm
and maybe you'd have to put in a bit more work or something like that. Like that's I think a preferable situation to you've got this ever dwindling
Yeah.
stack of like cans or something like that feels kind of precarious.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Well, that's pretty limited in the long term, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Um. All right, dude. Well, maybe I don't want to take up all of your day here. Maybe we'll wrap
And
it
no
up
worries. Is there
here.
any final thing or I've enjoyed this conversation. Took a kind of funny direction. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting to
No.
talk about. fucking prepping. But okay.
Yeah, no, well, no, always enjoyed talking to you, and I actually had no idea that this was the other part of your concerns at the moment, apart from doing the ask yourself stuff. So yeah, really interesting to hear about. I hope it goes well for you. You know, in a few years you'll be having your fully automated, vertical farming towers or whatever on your
Linux
homestead.
powered garden.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Just gonna kind of grind away. Well,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's good talking to you, and I guess we'll talk again soon.
yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe
You're
we can
gonna
look at. If you want to go over that debate, that would be something we could do also.
maybe we'll see. We'll see. You're getting a lot of love in my chat, just so you know. A lot of Ask Yourself fans in my chat.
Um, One of those is Stalker, who you should actually probably ban gardens. Well, that's a complete fucking crazy person who's been, pathologically sexually harassing and stalking me for many years. But yeah,
Okay.
aside from that fucking lunatic, yeah, that's nice. I'm glad your chat feels positive.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right, nice. Well, we'll have to leave it there. Hey. Yeah, hey, thanks again for your time. Really nice talking to you. And yeah, we'll catch up soon.
Okay. All right. Have a good day.
All right, take it easy.
Bye.